The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Zara Veltash walked through them, her blue skin pale with worry. Her forearms moved nervously as she carried the data pad that would change everything. The council members from 12 different worlds sat in their floating chairs, waiting for her report. "Council members," Zara began, her voice echoing in the huge room, "we have a problem. The Keth Moran is dying." A wave of whispers filled the chamber. Everyone knew about the Keth Moran. For 300 years, this creature had been the most feared thing in the galaxy. It stood 15 feet tall and weighed as much as a small ship. Its body was covered in thick black armor that could stop laser fire. Its claws could cut through metal like paper. Worst of all, it could read minds and predict what its enemies would do next. The beast came from Zerath, a planet where everything tried to kill everything else. The air was poison, the ground was hot enough to melt metal, and storms raged for months. Only the strongest creatures survived there. The Keth Moran was the strongest of them all. "How many has it killed?" asked Council Leader Thranks, his insect-like head tilting to one side. 7,412 confirmed deaths, Zara replied. "Entire military units from 7 different species. The best soldiers in the galaxy gone in minutes." The numbers made everyone uncomfortable. The Keth Moran had been captured 50 years ago after a battle that cost 10,000 lives. Since then, it had been kept on a special research station far from any populated worlds. Scientists studied it, trying to understand how something could be so deadly. "You said it was dying," spoke Admiral Corvin of the Rigel Defense Force. "Is this not good news?" Zara shook her head. "No, sir. When a Keth Moran dies, it goes through something called Keth-thenosis. All the energy stored in its body gets released at once. The explosion could destroy an entire star system." The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The research station was in the Kepler system, home to 3 billion people spread across 4 worlds. "How long do we have?" asked Thranks. "Days, maybe weeks. The process has already started. Our scientists say there is no way to stop it." Far away from the council meeting, on the research station called Prometheus Unbound, Marine Gunnery Sergeant Jake Morrison sat in his small room. He was cleaning his rifle, the same ritual he had done every day for 15 years. The weapon was different from what the other soldiers carried. While they used energy beams and plasma bolts, Jake's rifle fired simple metal bullets using old chemical explosives. Most aliens thought human weapons were primitive. They laughed at the idea of throwing pieces of metal at enemies when they could use pure energy. But Jake knew better. Energy weapons could be blocked or redirected. Bullets were simple physics. Mass times velocity equals impact. Hard to argue with that. Jake was the only human on the security team. Earth had joined the Galactic Council only 50 years ago, and humans were still seen as newcomers. Most species had thousands of years of space travel behind them. Humans had barely left their own solar system when first contact happened. The station shook slightly, and Jake looked up from his rifle. These shakes had been happening more often lately. Dr. Eliseth Karoon, the lead scientist, said they were normal. The creature was getting restless. Jake did not like it. He had seen the Keth Moran only once during his first week on the station. It was kept behind multiple force fields in a containment cell deep in the station's center. Even through all that protection, Jake could feel something wrong about the creature. It moved like it was thinking, planning. Its eyes followed him as he walked past. Those eyes held intelligence and hatred. "Morrison, report to the observation deck," came a voice through his communicator. Jake finished cleaning his rifle and walked through the station's corridors. The Prometheus Unbound was huge, with sections for research, housing, and security. Over 200 people from 15 different species worked here. It was supposed to be the safest place in the galaxy to study dangerous creatures. The observation deck gave a clear view of space. The dead star they orbited cast no light, making the surrounding darkness complete. Only the station's lights showed that anything lived here. Dr. Korun was waiting for him. She was a Korthian, tall and thin, with skin that changed color based on her mood. Right now, her skin showed the purple patterns of deep worry. "Sergeant Morrison," she said, "I need to speak with you about the creature." "What about it, Doc?" "The Kethmaran's cellular structure is breaking down faster than we expected. The energy readings are off the charts. I am concerned that our containment systems may not hold much longer." Jake looked through the thick window toward the station's center, where the creature was kept. He could not see it from here, but he could feel it somehow. "What do you need from me?" "I want you to be ready. If something goes wrong, you and the security team will need to evacuate everyone quickly." "And the creature?" Dr. Corrin's skin shifted to dark red, the color of fear. "If the containment fails, there will be no stopping it. The Kethmaran has never been successfully killed. Every attempt has only made it angrier." Jake thought about this. He had killed many things in his life, from enemy soldiers to dangerous animals on frontier worlds. Everything could be killed if you knew where to shoot and use the right ammunition. "Doc, has anyone ever tried shooting it with old-fashioned bullets?" "Bullets?" Dr. Korun looked confused. "Sergeant, energy weapons cannot penetrate its armor. How could primitive projectiles succeed where advanced technology fails?" Jake smiled and patted his rifle. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. You never know until you try." As they talked, neither of them noticed the slight vibration in the station's hull. Deep in the containment area, the Kethmaran raised its massive head and let out a silent roar that only it could hear. The countdown to destruction had begun. The alarm started at Oro 300 station time. Jake woke up immediately, his training kicking in before his mind was fully awake. The sound was different from the usual drills. This was the real emergency signal. Red lights flashed in his room as the computer announced, "Code Red, containment breach imminent, all personnel to emergency stations." Jake grabbed his rifle and ran toward the containment area. The corridors filled with panicking scientists and researchers. Most had never faced real danger before. They pushed and shoved, trying to reach the escape pods. Jake pushed past them, moving toward the danger instead of away from it. In the main laboratory, Dr. Korun stood before a wall of monitors showing the containment cell. Her skin had turned completely black, a color Jake had never seen before. "What happened?" he asked. "The creature's bioelectrical field spiked 30 minutes ago," she said, her voice shaking. "The surge overloaded our neural dampeners. 3 researchers who were monitoring it are now in medical. They cannot speak or move. The psychic feedback put them in comas." On the screens, Jake could see the Kethmoran inside its cell. The creature was larger than he remembered. Its black armor gleamed under the lights, and its 6 limbs moved with deadly grace. But something was wrong with it. Its movements seemed jerky, and strange lights flickered under its skin. "It is dying," Dr. Korun continued, "but not quietly. The Keththanosis process has begun. Its body is converting all stored life energy into pure destructive force." "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe less. When it reaches critical mass, the explosion will create a gravity well that could destroy this entire star system." Captain Zara arrived with the rest of the security team. Her blue face was grim as she looked at the monitors. "Status report. Doctor. Containment is holding for now, but barely. The quantum barriers are at 90% capacity. If the creature's energy output increases any more, they will fail." As if hearing her words, the Kethmoran suddenly stood up to its full 15-foot height. It walked to the barrier wall and placed one clawed hand against it. The barrier sparked and hummed with the strain. On the monitors, they could see the energy readings climb higher. "It knows we are watching," Jake said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" asked Zara. "Look at its eyes. It is not just acting on instinct. It is thinking, planning. It wants out, and it knows exactly how to do it." The creature pulled its hand back and tilted its massive head. For a moment, Jake felt something brush against his mind, a cold, alien presence that made his skin crawl. Then the Kethmoran raised its head and screamed. The sound did not come through the speakers, it came directly into their minds. Every person in the room grabbed their heads in pain. The alien members of the security team collapsed, their minds not built to handle such psychic force. Jake stayed standing, blood running from his nose, but conscious. On the monitors, they watched the first quantum barrier fail. Sparks flew from the containment systems, and emergency lights began flashing throughout the station. "Everyone out!" Zara shouted, helping her fallen teammates to their feet. "Begin immediate evacuation!" Dr. Karoon was already at her computer, sending out the evacuation order. "All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Repeat, this is not a drill." Jake looked at the monitors again. The Kethmoran was now testing the second barrier, pushing against it with increasing force. Each impact sent shock waves through the station's hull. "Captain," Jake said, "I volunteer to stay with a minimal security team." "Negative, Sergeant. Conventional weapons are useless against a Kethmoran. We evacuate everyone and hope the remaining barriers hold long enough for rescue ships to arrive." "Ma'am, with respect, no one has tried conventional weapons on this thing. Everyone assumes energy weapons are better, but what if they are wrong?" Zara looked at him like he was crazy. "Sergeant, that creature has survived direct hits from plasma cannons, fusion bombs, and military-grade laser arrays. Your rifle fires chunks of metal." "Yes, ma'am. And metal is harder than flesh, no matter what planet you come from." Another psychic scream echoed through their minds. The second barrier failed with a shower of sparks. Only 2 barriers remained between the Kethmoran and the rest of the station. Dr. Karoon looked up from her computer, her skin now a swirling mix of black and red. "Captain, if someone does not try to stop it, we have perhaps 6 hours before the creature reaches critical mass. The explosion will not just destroy us, it will create a chain reaction that destroys the Kepler system. 3 billion lives." Jake checked his rifle and started loading special ammunition he had been saving for emergencies. The bullets were made of tungsten carbide, harder than the standard rounds. If he was going to face the galaxy's deadliest creature, he wanted the best ammunition possible. "I am staying," he said firmly. "You can court-martial me later if we survive." Zara looked at her remaining security team. Most were still recovering from the psychic attack. The alien species that made up her unit were brave, but their minds worked differently from humans. The Kethmoran's telepathic abilities gave it a huge advantage against them. "Fine," she said finally. "I will stay too, along with volunteers from the security team. But if this fails, we all die." Jake smiled grimly and chambered around. "Captain, I have never met a problem that could not be solved with the right bullet in the right place." The third barrier began to flicker and spark. In the containment cell, the Kethmoran pressed both hands against the wall and pushed. Cracks appeared in the quantum field. The hunt was about to begin. The third barrier failed at 0347 hours. Jake felt it happen before he saw it, a sudden pressure in his head, like diving too deep underwater. On the monitors, the Kethmoran stepped through the sparking remains of the quantum wall and looked directly at the camera. For a moment, Jake swore the creature was staring right at him. Then the camera went dead. "All units, this is Captain Veltash," Zara spoke into her communicator. "The creature is loose. Repeat. The Kethmoran has broken containment. All remaining personnel implement Protocol 7 immediately." Protocol 7 meant hit-and-run tactics. Do not engage directly. Slow the creature down and try to guide it away from civilian areas. It was a plan designed by military experts who had studied every recorded Kethmoran encounter. Jake thought it was a suicide mission. The security team split into 3 groups. Zara took 2 soldiers and headed for the command center to coordinate evacuation efforts. Lieutenant Corvex led another group to protect the remaining scientists. Jake went alone, following hunting patterns he had learned as a child in the mountains of Montana. The station's main corridors were chaos. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. Warning sirens blared constantly. In the distance, Jake could hear the sound of metal being torn apart like paper. The creature was making its own path through the station. Jake moved carefully through the maintenance tunnels, places the Kethmaran would not expect. His rifle was ready, but he was not looking for a fight yet. He needed to understand how the creature moved, how it thought. Every hunter knew that understanding your prey was more important than having the best weapon. Through the tunnel walls, he heard Lieutenant Corvex's team make contact with the creature. Plasma fire erupted in bright flashes, followed by screaming, then silence. Jake checked his watch. The engagement had lasted less than 2 minutes. "All units, Team 2 is down," came Zara's voice over the radio. "The creature is heading toward the habitat ring. I repeat, it is moving toward civilian areas." Jake changed direction, using his knowledge of the station's layout to get ahead of the creature. Unlike his alien teammates, he did not rush toward the enemy. Instead, he positioned himself where the creature would be, not where it was. It was a simple concept that most species never developed. They either hunted in groups with overwhelming force, or they avoided predators entirely. The idea of a single hunter stalking a more powerful enemy was uniquely human. He reached the habitat ring just as the Kethmoran burst through a bulkhead wall. The creature moved with terrifying intelligence, not just destroying everything in its path, but choosing its route carefully. It was heading for the most populated areas first. Jake watched from a hidden maintenance alcove as the creature passed below him. Up close, he could see the strange lights flickering under its armor. The dying process was making it stronger somehow, more dangerous. But it was also making it predictable. Pain and desperation drove creatures to make mistakes. The Kethmaran stopped suddenly and raised its head. Jake felt the psychic probe wash over him like cold water. The creature was trying to read his mind, to understand where he was and what he planned to do. But Jake had learned a trick during his years fighting telepathic enemies on the frontier worlds. He thought about nothing important: fishing trips, his grandmother's cooking, old movies. The surface thoughts hid his real intentions deeper in his mind. After a moment, the creature moved on. It had not detected him. Jake followed at a distance, moving through the station's hidden spaces. He watched as the Kethmaran systematically hunted down the remaining personnel. It used its telepathic abilities to predict their movements, always arriving at the perfect spot to intercept them. Energy weapons bounced off its armor like raindrops. Claws that could cut through tank plating made short work of the station's security barriers. But Jake noticed something the creature did not realize about itself. Every 3 minutes, it paused to project another psychic scream. During these attacks, it stood perfectly still and tilted its head back, exposing a small section of neck between its armor plates. The gap lasted exactly 3 seconds. Jake started planning. He made his way to the observation deck where Captain Zara had made her final stand. She was still alive, using her natural energy projection abilities to hold the creature at bay. Her blue skin glowed with the effort, and Jake could see she was weakening fast. "Zara!" he whispered into his radio. "Can you hear me?" "Morrison, where are you?" "Maintenance level. Section 7. Listen carefully. In 30 seconds, I need you to do something that will make the creature very angry. Can you do that? I am already making it angry by not dying fast enough. I need more than that. Hit it with everything you have got. Make it scream." Zara did not question the order. When Jake counted down to 0, she released all her stored energy in a massive blast that struck the Kethmaran in the chest. The creature staggered backward, more surprised than hurt. Then it raised its head and let out the loudest psychic scream yet. Jake lined up his shot through a gap in the floor plating. The creature's neck was exposed, just as he had predicted. But the shot was impossible. 400 meters through multiple obstacles, with the creature moving and the station shaking from system failures. No alien would have even attempted it. Jake pulled the trigger. The tungsten bullet punched through the floor plating, ricocheted off a support beam, and struck the Kethmoran in the side of the neck. The creature roared in pain and rage, the first time anyone had heard it in 50 years. Blood ran down the creature's armor as it spun around, searching for its attacker. Jake was already moving, using the maintenance tunnels to reach a new position. The shot had not been fatal, but it had proved something important. The creature could be hurt. Now the real hunt could begin. The Kethmoran abandoned its attack on Zara and began systematically tearing apart the observation deck, looking for the hidden sniper. Its movements were more frantic now, driven by pain and confusion. For the first time in its life, something had hurt it without being seen. Jake smiled grimly as he moved through the station's hidden pathways. The creature was learning that humans hunted differently than everyone else in the galaxy, and that lesson was going to cost it dearly. Jake crouched in the agricultural ring, studying the readings on his rifle scope. The station's computer had given him the bad news. They had 8 minutes before the Kethmoran reached critical mass. After that, the explosion would destroy everything within 50 light years. Through his scope, he could see the creature in the observatory deck, 4 levels below and 800 meters away. It was trapped there with Captain Zara, who was barely conscious after using all her energy. The Kethmoran had stopped trying to kill her quickly. Instead, it was drawing out her death, feeding on her fear and pain. The process was making its own death transformation faster. Jake had spent the last hour studying the creature's behavior patterns. Every time it prepared to kill someone, it performed the same ritual. It would rear up on its hind legs, spread its arms wide, and project a focused telepathic attack to paralyze its victim. During this 3-second window, the small neural cluster at the base of its skull was exposed. The problem was that Jake needed the creature to be in exactly the right position, at exactly the right time, for exactly 3 seconds. And he needed to make a shot that defied physics. His target was a spot the size of a coin, protected by overlapping armor plates that only moved during the creature's killing ritual. To hit it, Jake would need to account for the station's rotation, the gravity fluctuation from the nearby dead star, atmospheric disturbance from the fires burning throughout the station, and the creature's own movement patterns. Worse, he could not shoot directly. The angle was wrong, and there were too many obstacles between him and the target. Jake would have to ricochet his bullet off the observatory's viewing window, using the angle to redirect it around the creature's armor and into the neural cluster. Jake had made ricochet shots before, but never under these conditions. The math alone would challenge a supercomputer. He would have to calculate 17 different variables in real time, using nothing but instinct and experience. He loaded a special tungsten core round, the hardest ammunition he carried. The bullet had been designed for penetrating starship armor. If anything could punch through the creature's defenses, this was it. Through his scope, Jake watched the Kethmoran circle around Zara like a predator playing with wounded prey. Strange lights pulsed faster under its armor now, and the air around it shimmered with heat. The bioelectrical field was approaching dangerous levels. Jake began his calculations. Distance to target, 847 meters. Station rotation, 0.3 degrees per second. Gravity differential, 0.7 standard. Atmospheric density, 0.8 normal due to decompression from hull breaches. Wind resistance from air circulation systems, minimal. Projectile drop-over distance, 3.2 meters. Angle of ricochet off viewing window, 23 degrees. Deflection needed to bypass armor, 15 degrees right, 8 degrees down. His father had taught him to hunt in the Rocky Mountains when Jake was 8 years old. "Son," the old man had said, "shooting is not about the gun. It is about understanding everything between you and your target. Wind, gravity, distance, movement. Miss one variable, and you miss your shot." Jake closed his eyes and felt the station around him. The slight vibration from the failing power systems. The way the artificial gravity fluctuated as damaged generators struggled to maintain field strength. The rhythm of the air circulation, disturbed by hull breaches but still predictable. He opened his eyes and adjusted his scope for the impossible shot. Through the crosshairs, he watched the Kethmoran finally tire of its game. The creature reared up to its full height, preparing for the killing blow. Its arms spread wide, claws gleaming in the emergency lighting. It tilted its head back and began the telepathic attack that would turn Zara's brain to jelly. Jake had one chance, 3 seconds. Miss, and Captain Zara died. Miss, and the creature completed its transformation. Miss, and 3 billion people across 4 worlds died in the resulting explosion. He thought about his training, his experience, every shot he had ever made in 20 years of military service. Then he stopped thinking and let instinct take over. Human intuition, evolved over millions of years of hunting on a dangerous world, made calculations no computer could match. Jake squeezed the trigger. The tungsten core round left the barrel at 1,200 meters per second. It flew across the agricultural ring, passed through the gap between 2 support beams with centimeters to spare, entered the observatory level through an open maintenance hatch, and struck the viewing window at precisely the right angle. The bullet ricocheted off the transparent aluminum, changing direction by exactly 38 degrees. It curved around the Kethmoran's raised arm, passed between 2 armor plates that were separated by less than an inch, and punched into the neural cluster at the base of the creature's skull. The effect was immediate. The Kethmoran's telepathic scream cut off mid-projection. The creature's arms dropped to its sides, and it took one staggering step backward. For a moment that lasted forever, the galaxy's deadliest predator stood perfectly still. Then it fell. The massive body crashed to the observatory floor with enough force to crack the deck plating. The strange lights under its armor flickered once and went dark. The bioelectrical field that had been building toward critical mass collapsed harmlessly, dissipating into space as waste heat. Jake lowered his rifle and took a deep breath. His hands were shaking slightly, the first time that had happened since his rookie days. Through his scope, he could see Zara struggling to sit up, alive and conscious. "Morrison to all stations," he said into his radio. "Target is down. Repeat, the creature is dead." The response was immediate. Cheers echoed through the station's communication system as the few remaining personnel realized they had survived. Emergency teams rushed to help with medical care and damage control. Jake sat back against a bulkhead and began cleaning his rifle. Just another day's work, he told himself. But he knew better. What he had just done would be talked about for generations. The shot that saved a star system, the human who killed the unkillable. But right now, he just wanted to go home to Earth and see if his father was still setting up impossible targets in the backyard. Jake had a feeling he was going to need the practice. The dead star continued its silent orbit, casting no light on the station where the impossible had just become reality. In the distance, rescue ships were already heading toward them, drawn by the emergency signals. The hunt was over. 3 weeks later, Jake sat in the Galactic Council chambers for the second time in his life. The first time had been for his initial security clearance. This time, representatives from 47 different species had come to hear about the shot that changed everything. Dr. Karoon stood at the main podium, her skin cycling through colors Jake had never seen before. She was excited, confused, and amazed all at the same time. "Council members," she began, "what Sergeant Morrison accomplished should have been impossible. Our computers calculate the probability of his shot succeeding at roughly 1 in 4 billion. Admiral Corvin leaned forward in his floating chair. "Doctor, explain to us how a primitive projectile weapon succeeded where our most advanced energy weapons failed. Jake shifted uncomfortably as all eyes turned to him. He had tried to explain this a dozen times already, but alien minds seemed to have trouble with the concept. Dr. Karoon activated a holographic display showing Jake's bullet path. The Kethmaran's armor was designed by evolution to deflect energy attacks. Energy weapons work by heating and disrupting matter. But Sergeant Morrison's bullet was pure kinetic force, mass multiplied by velocity. The armor plating had no defense against old-fashioned physics. "But the ricochet shot," interrupted Council Leader Thranks. "How did he calculate such a complex trajectory in real time?" "He did not calculate it," Dr. Korun replied. "At least, not the way our computers do. Human brains evolved for persistence hunting on a world with variable gravity and unpredictable weather. They developed intuitive abilities that let them make these calculations without conscious thought." Jake finally spoke up. "With respect, Council, it was not that complicated. I grew up hunting in mountains where wind changes every few seconds. You learn to feel the shot instead of thinking about it." The council members exchanged glances. To them, what Jake described sounded like magic. Their species had evolved on more stable worlds where conditions were predictable. The idea of making split-second decisions based on intuition instead of data was foreign to them. "There is more," Dr. Corrin continued. "Analysis of the creature's remains shows that Sergeant Morrison's bullet struck the only spot that could have caused instant death. A shot anywhere else would have only made it angrier. He somehow identified a target the size of a coin, protected by armor, on a creature that had never been successfully studied." Captain Zara, who had recovered from her injuries, stepped forward. "If I may, Council, I watched Sergeant Morrison track the Kethmaran through the station. He used tactics that none of our military academies teach. Instead of confronting the enemy with superior force, he studied its behavior patterns and used patience to find its weakness." "Guerrilla warfare," Jake said quietly. "We call it guerrilla warfare. When you are outgunned, you do not fight fair. You fight smart." Admiral Corvin's insect-like head tilted thoughtfully. "This suggests that human military doctrine could be valuable to the Galactic Defense Force. How many humans possess these skills?" Jake shrugged. "Most of us, to some degree. Earth is a dangerous place. You learn to hunt, or you do not survive long in the wild areas." The council spent the next hour discussing the implications. If humans could do things that seemed impossible to other species, what did that mean for galactic security? For exploration? For the future of the galaxy itself? Finally, Admiral Corvin made an official announcement. "The Galactic Defense Force is creating a new human marksmanship corps. Sergeant Morrison, we would like you to lead this new division." Jake had been expecting this offer. For 3 weeks, military officials from across the galaxy had been visiting Earth, trying to recruit human soldiers. The idea of a specialized human unit was gaining support throughout the council. "Thank you for the honor, Admiral," Jake said carefully, "but I will need time to think about it." "Of course. Take all the time you need." 2 days later, Jake was back on Earth, sitting on the porch of his family's ranch in Montana. The mountains stretched out before him, covered in snow, even though it was summer at this altitude. This was the place where he had learned to shoot, learned to hunt, learned to be patient. His father sat in the next chair over, cleaning an old hunting rifle that had belonged to Jake's grandfather. "So," the old man said without looking up, "the whole galaxy wants you to teach them how to shoot." "Something like that," Jake replied. "They think human soldiers could change how wars are fought." "Probably could. Question is, do you want that responsibility?" Jake thought about it. He could spend the rest of his life training alien soldiers, turning human hunting skills into military doctrine. He could become famous across 47 worlds as the man who killed the unkillable. Or he could stay here, in the place that had made him who he was. "Dad," Jake said, Remember when you taught me to shoot? You said the most important thing was not the gun or the target. It was knowing when not to pull the trigger. His father smiled and set down the rifle. Smartest thing I ever taught you. That evening, Jake sent his response to the Galactic Defense Force. He thanked them for the offer, but respectfully declined. Earth needed people who understood how to live on a dangerous world, not just how to kill dangerous things. He would stay home and train the next generation of human hunters. But he kept one thing from his time on the station. In the shed behind the house, carefully mounted on the wall, hung the rifle that had killed the galaxy's deadliest beast. Sometimes, when the stars were bright and the night was quiet, Jake would take it down and clean it carefully, just in case the galaxy ever needed another impossible shot. The following morning, Jake woke up early and walked out to the fence line where his father had set up a series of bottles for target practice. 300 meters away, just like when he was a kid. Some things never changed. He raised his rifle, felt the mountain wind on his face, and took aim. The bottle exploded in a shower of glass, the same as it had 1,000 times before. But now Jake knew that somewhere out there, aliens were studying recordings of that simple shot, trying to understand how humans made the impossible look easy. Jake smiled and loaded another round. Let them study all they wanted. Some things could not be taught from books or computers. Some things had to be learned with patience, practice, and a willingness to miss a lot of shots before making the one that counted. In the distance, a commercial starship left Earth's atmosphere, carrying human volunteers to join the Galactic Defense Force. Jake wished them luck. They would do fine. Humans always did, once they learned to stop trying to fight fair. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had known for millions of years. When survival was on the line, the most primitive skills were often the most effective. And sometimes, the right person with the right weapon at the right moment could change the course of history with a single shot. Jake picked up another bottle and placed it on the fence post. Time to practice. You never knew when the impossible might need doing again.